Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. I was just going through and I'm like, man, finally fixed the volume and fixed my sound system. So please let me know if it doesn't sound right. For some reason, it's like spiking really high. But it took me, I've been working on this for days and I couldn't believe it like 2 seconds before the show started. I finally got it to work. I'm so happy about that. We have Colonel Joe Adams joining us in just a few moments from the Washington Guard. Very happy to have Colonel Joe Adams join us. He was not able to join us last week. It was a very sad show without him. I hope you guys had a really good weekend. It's been really cold. I've had a crazy weekend. My furnace went out. I'm waiting for I've been plenty warm. I've got, other heating systems, but it's kind of weird. This house has three different heating systems and two of the three went out, but it's just a blown fuse. I just don't know how to get to the fuse to fix it. So hopefully somebody comes out today because guess what? It's going to snow some more and I have to work tonight. So I will be driving in whatever crazy weather comes our way. Good morning, Dottie. Good to see you this morning. And you were right on time. I was I'm always running a couple of minutes late, and I haven't straightened out my flag yet either. If anyone hasn't noticed, I'm very OCD too. So every time I get on here, I'm like, oh, I haven't straightened out my flag. It drives me crazy. But we got a lot to talk about today. Again, Colonel Joe Adams joining us with the Washington Guard here in just about 2 minutes. And on my end, we've got some other things to talk about. I didn't write any notes down today. We're just going to kind of wing some topics. I'm sure Colonel Joe Adams has some things he wants to talk about also, and talk about a little bit about New York City. Socialism is not free. we're going to talk about that. 2028, Kamala Harris. We can already see them drumming up support for Kamala Harris. And that just goes to show how out of touch Democrats are. If Kamala Harris is the best thing they have going for them, then they have far bigger problems than anything we've maybe thought that they had. Why she was even a candidate in 2024, I'll never know. I really have no idea. Now, Newsom, I don't know about Newsom. Well, there's a lot of talk about Newsom running, but I think he's got too many skeletons in his closet. We will soon find out. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Dee. And that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about. Obviously, I want to talk about radicalization in the United States. That's such a big topic right now, and for good reason. And that is because we were hearing that Lachenwall is the Islamic shooter that shot two of our National Guard troops, from what I understand. Andrew Wolf, still in critical condition. Sarah Beckstrom, unfortunately, has passed away of her injuries. And on the show Saturday, it's weird to have a show on Saturday, but I did have a show on Saturday. And one of the things I asked is, was he radicalized in Afghanistan or was he radicalized here in the United States? Now, we'll never know the truth, but they're telling us that it happened here in the United States. And I'm not surprised by that at all. And I'll bet Colonel Joe Adams wouldn't be surprised either. But we also know he could have pretended, to be all, pro-American until he got here. So we're going to be bringing in Colonel Joe Adams and see what he's got to say. And I will bet you he's got something to say about that. Good morning, Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful, snowy Monday morning. How are you doing today, first and foremost?
Well, I got my voice back mostly,
Yes.
so I'm back and I'm bad. So I woke up with a sore throat one morning, and all of a sudden I started talking like Froggy. So
Oh
anyway,
no.
I can communicate now. So
That is the worst, isn't it, when you don't have a voice? That's how I went through this period of time, probably right at the beginning of whatever illness I have right now started. And during that time, I didn't have much. This was before the show started. I didn't have a voice for 3 months. It was like very squeaky and barely there, and it was miserable. I can relate. Now, Colonel Adams, I'm glad, first of all, to hear you are on the mend. And what I wanted to ask you first off, before we get too far, just because we're already kind of in the midst of that conversation, is you obviously about the two National Guard troops that were shot, and it just a horrific situation, no question about it. But now that was, of course, in Washington D.C. But now we hear the shooter, obviously somebody from Kandahar, Afghanistan, who was part of the CIA, worked with special operations troops in Kandahar. He claims that he was radicalized in the United States, that when he came here, he was pro-America, and then he was radicalized in his local mosque. What do you think about that?
Well, they throw the CIA thing in there just to make headlines, but the CIA was running the operations. So what? They run a lot of operations, but
Yes,
he wasn't a CIA agent or nothing like that.
correct,
They just were in charge of the program. That's all.
correct.
That's just to make the news. So yeah, this guy. Well, one of the problems I have. I got contacted a few months ago about a group that was bringing in Afghanis, and I said, "Why would you do that?" And they said, "Well, these are the people who helped us. We just bring in the ones who helped us, and we're trying to emancipate them and get them into this country." I said, "Well, you're going to be sorry about that." But I understand when you make friends in different countries, but the mere fact that they are still Muslims and they support Islam, the two doesn't make a difference with me. If they're Muslims, you can't trust them in this vetting process. I've said
Oh,
it
they were not
before.
vetted.
Well, yeah, but it
There's
didn't
no
matter.
vetting.
It didn't matter if they were. You can't vet what's in somebody's heart.
Correct.
So the whole thing's just a big, big, big mistake. And as far as those National Guard people getting shot, I predicted that from day one when we started sending National Guards in, because I told Deanna, my wife, that what's going to happen when they start shooting our people, and they will, and this is going to get worse. Now, how the police handle it, they got to crack down on these people. This is they just continue with the violence, and now they're attacking the police and shooting our National Guard. Enough is enough.
Well, that's what Democrats asked them to do. I mean, haven't they promoted this from day one that the National Guard shouldn't be in our cities? There are, I mean, look at all the lies that have been out there. They're arresting innocent civilians. They're shooting at innocent civilians. If we allow the National Guard troops to continue being in our cities, they're just going to start shooting people. So, there's no question people are going to be fearful. Now, that's not what this situation was. This was a flat out terror attack, had nothing to do with people being fearful. It was a terror attack. But to your point that it's going to continue, and this is probably just the beginning. That's what I feel like. That's what Democrats want, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they spend all their resources doing everything they can to fight Trump instead of doing what they should be doing for the people. They're preoccupied with destroying Donald Trump. They don't care about anything else.
Correct.
And these instigators at these protests that are saying, "Oh, here's the new word. We don't want them to deport our neighbors, our neighbors." But these people who are saying that are being paid to say that.
Yes.
The poor people that show up are just leading the blind, leading the blind. Now that these are paid agitators to say, but the new key word is they are our neighbors. These people saying that are paid to say it. They don't care about these people. They just care about making the money, and they're using it against Donald Trump.
Oh, no question. And if you ask them, they say that's not true. Oh, I've never been paid. Nobody's paid. I've never met anybody that's been paid. But yet we know it's true. We know
Yeah.
it's true.
That little girl, that National Guard lady that got shot, she wasn't even armed.
Well, I've heard conflicted reports about that. I heard that they were both armed, that they just didn't have time to react. And then other people say, well, they weren't armed. So I can't be 100% confident either direction.
I somebody told me I was going to work a security detail and I couldn't carry a weapon. I'm going to think, well, get somebody else. I wouldn't do it. But as far as I know, and she was a probationary, because wasn't that her first day on the job?
If so, I have not heard that. I don't think so. I mean, her father, if you go back and look at her father's posts, he's been posting about her being in Washington, D.C., for some time. So if that was her first day, I'm not aware of it. I know that
Yeah.
her, Andrew Wolf, 20 years old, both from Virginia. And, I haven't heard a lot of statements from Andrew Wolf's family, but I've heard quite a few statements from Sarah Beckstrom's father and some of the posts that he's made. And, Donald Trump, of course, called both families and talked to them. But if that was her first day on the job, that's not something I have heard.
Now, if I was in charge, I wouldn't have any women out there to begin with. No, none. No. Like I've said it a dozen times, I was raised to protect women and children, not put them in harm's way. Uh, I guess it's politically correct to have women in the National Guard on the front lines, but no, they don't. They don't belong there. They don't belong in a combat role. And if you don't think walking those streets is a combat role, you're mistaken. There's people that are watching. There's people out there that want to kill the National Guard,
Oh,
and so that's
clearly.
I
And the
I
way
would not
that
have it.
Well, the way that I don't have any issue with women being in the National Guard. No, I do have a problem with women being in combat. But like you said, these days, being in the National Guard, walking the streets of Washington D.C. is very similar to combat. I mean, look what this guy did. He yelled Allah. I never can say that right. Allahu, is it Allahu Akbar or something like that? And then it was an ambush. He waited. He actually shot her through the glass of the bus stop, the bus stop glass, shot her through that, which is probably why they weren't prepared. Who would have, they probably didn't even see this guy. And that's part of the issue too, is that and I think we don't teach enough people about situational awareness. I can't say, oh, 100% I would have seen this guy. I don't know that. But at the same time, I would like to think that I would have been watching all of the people around me, whether they seemed innocent or not.
Oh, she got blindsided. They were inside that bus stop right there. Her
Correct.
peripheral was shut off.
Yeah.
Tactical error.
Yeah. And highly unfortunate. And Colonel Adams, I don't know if you've heard this or not, but the report is that Lackenwall shot her first in the chest through that glass, walked around the glass, but he looked like, I think he specifically targeted her because she was a female. There were other males around that he did not target. Now the story is that he had 4 rounds, shot her once in the chest, yeah, shot at a couple other people, I think, and missed, and then walked around and grabbed her, which is why they're saying she was armed, because he took her weapon, and that's when he shot Andrew Wolf, and then started shooting at other people, when of course he was himself shot. And then another one of the National Guardsmen took his pocket knife. He was just there on some type of working patrol or something he was doing, and stabbed him multiple times in the head. But with a pocket knife, so it didn't really do a whole lot of damage. But that is what I'm hearing is the official story.
It's officially a cluster. You know what? Terrible waste. But when you know, so suffering from Kent State, and that's part of the problem. They don't want the National Guard to have to exchange fire for political correctness or whatever. But I don't understand it. If you put me out there in a security detail, what's the mission statement here? Just to be a show of force? Well, show of force makes you a target. That's
Correct.
all. I'm against
Correct.
the whole thing. Arm him to the teeth. You yell Akbar to me, and I'm going to blow your head off. So simple as that. Problem solved. But I feel sorry for his
Yeah, it's a
family.
terrible, absolutely terrible situation, and it's just so unfortunate. And like you said, it's probably just the beginning of the situation. And
Oh, yeah.
the way I think about it, one part that I left out is that when he allegedly took Sarah Beckstrom's weapon from her, he also shot her in the head. He had shot her in the chest, took her weapon, then shot her in the head, and then apparently that's when he shot Andrew Wolf, is what I'm hearing. That's the official report I'm hearing. But that takes a lot of nerve, for somebody to show up to this type of scene allegedly with 4 rounds, thinking that he's going to be able to get one of their guns. And it's kind of hard to think that he didn't have some type of training.
What a mess. Just everybody did everything wrong. But at least they got him. So
Well, thankfully, now here's the thing, what's going to happen to him?
Yeah.
That's the whole issue. Is he going to be sent to Gitmo? Or are they going to, send him back to Afghanistan? I mean, what exactly is going to happen to this guy? Because I think we've seen how the justice system tends to play out in this country, which is also just an entirely other failed situation.
And that was my first thought. Just send him to Gitmo. They got medical facilities down there. Send him down there. See how he likes that.
That's where he belongs, and I'm sure Donald Trump will make sure that that's exactly where he goes, and that's where he belongs. But here's the problem too. Some of these people who follow the ideology of radical Islam, they go to prison and they just radicalize other people. Then all of a sudden you see these white people, white as me, out running around who are radical Islamicists. And it's just a really bad situation. I think they should be kept away from other people if they have this ideology, so that they're not just spreading the hate amongst everyone else they're housed with. I've read countless stories of people who were radicalized in prison and they end up out on the streets and, in a completely different situation what they were in to begin with. And it's just hate. It's just pure hate.
I just saw where Kevin Joseph chimed in that he had CIA training. Kev, look, they taught him how to shoot. They gave him some marksmanship classes, and that's about it. So it wasn't like CIA training. Like I've got CIA targets hanging up in my basement as souvenirs. So it wasn't intense training. It's just basic stuff. So, but that CIA stuff is just to draw headlines. That's all.
But then Colonel Adams, a lot of people are going down that route. That was it a false flag operation? Is it possible that he was recruited, through these contacts that he had, and say, hey, we need to go after this political agenda. How about we send you out to harm some, kill some National Guards troops and set things off in a certain. Now, I don't know that I believe that this is that type of situation, because I can't see who it would benefit or where down the road we would go with that.
Oh, with all those splinter groups, yeah, I thought about that too. Maybe he was on assignment. Maybe
Right.
he just didn't take it. But the 4-round thing in a magazine, I don't understand. I don't understand that at all.
Well, yeah, I don't either. There was a lot of weirdness to this. There's also a lot of strange reporting, because the initial report stated that he was wearing tactical gear, but it's very clear when you watch. There's the entire shooting's caught on video, every single minute of it. And if you watch the video, it looks like he's wearing sweatpants, in a shirt, kind of like what I have on right now, and a jacket. So I don't think that he was wearing tactical gear. I don't know where that initial report came from.
Did he shoot her in the body armor?
That's the part that I don't have an answer to, and I've thought a lot about that. That if he shot her in the chest, didn't she have body armor on? And then if he shot her in the chest, she had body armor. Then why wasn't she able to react or protect herself or keep her weapon secure? I'm a little bit confused on that myself. And if you watch the video, it is kind of a weird scenario how it was very clear that they were not prepared or expecting this type of attack.
No, they didn't expect it. No, not at all. But I looked at their body armor that they're wearing, and it looks like it could be level 4, but it doesn't appear to be, because it's not very, very, very heavy. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
obviously she wasn't wearing a strike plate. Put it that way.
Correct.
And as far as the concussion goes, when those bullets even hit the body armor, if you're not wearing a strike plate, the concussion to the body is incredible.
Oh yes, of course.
I've seen when Second Chance was the #1 producer of body armor in this country, they used to demonstrate by shooting themselves. Of course, they had a phone book behind them, but I've seen wounds on police officers that have hit body armor, and the bruise is huge.
Oh yes.
The concussion. So knocking her,
No question.
and she's a girl, and knocking her off her feet like that. I mean, she doesn't have the resistance that a man does, even though he probably would get stung too. So it probably shocked her and knocked her down. But I haven't seen the the autopsy and stuff of what physically happened. But yeah, just because she got shot, and even if she was wearing level 4, it could cause a body concussion, and she'd have went down.
That could be. And all the reports I read made it seem like she had a gunshot wound to the chest. So I also don't know where in the chest he shot her, if that makes sense. It may not have been point
Right.
center. It could have been off in some different areas. And there's a lot of vital organs that can be struck, around those shields.
Oh yeah, either just they don't cover that much.
Correct. Yeah.
Put it that way. They just covering the vital stuff. But I just feel sorry for the family. What a waste!
Oh my
Terrible,
God.
terrible waste.
20 years old, and her father in his post, he was so proud of her. He had made one post that's been shared, publicly. I've not looked at his Facebook page, but, it's just some posts are shared publicly, where he said he had one daughter heading off to college and one daughter, heading to Washington, D.C., with the National Guard. And that's the only reason why I thought maybe it wasn't her first day, because that was, some time ago when he made that post. But, maybe she was going through training. I I don't know the full scenario there, but just horrific. And you know what? Didn't we? I hate to say this. I absolutely hate to say this. Didn't we all just know this was going to happen sooner or later? Didn't we just know that it's just a matter of time before someone comes out and starts shooting and ambushing our National Guard troops, as well as our ICE members, of course. You know, they're both front center right now. Oh, I think we lost Colonel Adams for a moment. I am sure that he will hop right back in and join us. In the meantime, Rob says, get every S word Muslim out of America. And good morning, Karen. Mary says, I heard Head also. Yeah, I know her father stated that she did not have survivable injuries, unfortunately. And then let's see. Kevin, good morning, Kevin. Allison says death penalty. But the thing is, Kevin, I know, like Colonel Adams said, is that, we don't know really his affiliation with the CIA or his affiliation with a lot of different groups, because for all we know, this could have been some type of mission, like Colonel Adams said. I see Colonel Adams joining us back. Let's grab him here. Welcome back to the show, Colonel Adams. I don't see you, but I know you're there. Can you hear us, Colonel Adams? All right, well, I'll wait for him to pop in. Let's see. See if we can bring him in. Well, Colonel Adams, I'm not sure what's going on, but I do not see you. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to mess with the controls here. Colonel Adams, you might want to, if you can hear me, you might want to refresh your system. For some reason, your camera is not showing me. I see you in the waiting room, but I do not see your camera on. It's just a black screen. Hopefully, we'll get that situated here in just a moment. And that can happen. I have to refresh my screen sometimes too to get my camera back up and moving the way it's supposed to and connect. And let's see, Phyllis, a great book by Dr. Norman Wood, The Red Sword. It's about his years in undercover work, and they are making a movie about his book. I'm going to have to look that up, Phyllis. And good morning to you. Good morning, Nancy. Cyber Monday, man. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, such shams, aren't they? Good morning, Karen. And let's see here. Allison, a Muslim cannot live in America and follow the Quran and follow American law. That is very true, Allison. It's very difficult to assimilate. Thankfully, I do firmly believe we do have a lot of Muslims in this country who are pro-America, who love America and American law, but there's certainly some that do not. Let's see if we can, there we go. Good morning. Happy that you're joining us again, Colonel Adams. And I don't know if that was on my end or your end. I'm not really sure, but I can see you and I can hear you. So welcome back to the show. Can you hear us, Colonel Adams?
Got you now.
Okay, I say we can see you and hear you. All is good to go.
Okay, hey, if I lose you again, people need to start looking at England, how bad a shape they're in. Yeah, I didn't realize the population of England is only about 65 million people. 65 million people. Meanwhile, they've been bringing in a million a year of these migrants, and the migrants are taking over. Recently, they had a big protest plan for anti-immigration in London, huge one for anti-immigration. The police come in and shut it down, wouldn't let them protest, and then Islam moved in with all these hundreds of guys in black outfits and in masks, marching down the street saying, "This is our street, get out." And they did nothing to them. Right. So they wouldn't let Britons protest, but they let Islam take over the streets. What is wrong with that? They're gutless politicians.
Oh yeah, they're on the fast track to total destruction over in the UK. But Colonel Adams, we're not far behind them. We have followed their policies because, of course, we have people like Joe Biden and the auto pen and Obama who are, I talked about this I had a show on Saturday, Colonel Adams, and something I talked about was who's really running the country. We have, of course, the Trump administration, the official United States government. We have the shadow government, whatever you might want to call them, the cabal. We have the CIA, who are doing their own totally separate thing, altogether. And who knows how many dark, shadowy groups we don't even know about who are calling the shots behind the scenes. So the Trump administration is only one piece of the puzzle. People who are calling the shots and putting different plans together in place for this country. And we have no way to control or even know what all of these different groups are doing. And I have no doubt that every member of Congress knows that the Trump administration is only one piece of the pie.
Did you see the Islamic rally that it had in Tampa, Florida?
I did.
The
I did.
largest one ever.
I did
A
see that.
2-day event. Now, this is getting, in fact, 20 years ago when I was talking on the radio, when I had a radio show down in Springfield, Missouri, and I would talk about the coming threat of Islam, people thought I was crazy. They really did. I said, you'll see. Well,
Yeah.
where are we at today? Now everybody sees the threat, except the Democrats won't admit to it. So it's here, and it's here faster than I thought. Now magnify that. I said in 10 years you wouldn't recognize this country. Now we're down to 5. Even
Right.
mathematically, Donald Trump in the first 250 days has deported about 2 million people, but 1.6 million of those were volunteer deportees that left on their
Right.
own. So even doing the math that the present pace he's doing, it'll be 5 years to alleviate just the ones that Biden let in. Just those.
If it's even possible, let's go back to two different things here. One is that they are procreating and having an excessive number of children to put people back into the population. They've been doing this for a very long time. While the average American is having 1 to 2 children, and in what's trending is having 0 children, and then we have people who are wanting to take over our country, and they're having up to 20 to 25 children, which is what's really crazy. So they're certainly going to outpopulate us. We're kind of behind the game there. But here's something, Colonel Adams, that I ask myself all the time, and I feel like I have the answers to a lot of things. I don't have the answer to this. I think I might have an answer, but why is it that the Obama administration, the Biden administration, I'm not sure how far back it goes, why do they want the United States to become another Islamic caliphate? It's clear that that's what they want, but but I don't know why. Is it because they have more control over the people? Is it about control? Is it about power? I don't know the reason why, but I know that's what they want. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. Why do a bunch of white guys want the United States to become an Islamic republic? It makes no sense to me.
Power, just power. That's all. It's strictly power. And the real people running the show, the only visible person running the show is actually Obama. But he's got the power hungry people behind the new world order, and it's just about power. America is the last chance on this planet for a civilization and a democracy and freedom. We're the last ones. It's
Correct.
not like that in Russia. England's gone. France is down the toilet. Germany's is screwed up all because of this mass immigration. There's one thing that we know that doesn't work. Look around you. It's never worked, and it's not working. So, and who's Tammy Pupilio? Anyway, sorry about that, Tammy. I've still got a frog in my throat. She says deport them all no matter what. Now, future generations will look back. First of all, they'll say, why did they even let them in to begin with? Their ideology is anti-American and democracy. No. So they use the Constitution against us to get away with this stuff. She's right. Tammy's right. We need to deport every single Muslim from this country. Now, what's going to happen? Civil war. Okay, get it over with. Better now than 5 years from now when they're more ready. I mean, I'm a military man, strictly tactical. The enemy is amongst us, and you got to get rid of them. Period.
It's a very difficult situation, and especially here in America, which is another control tactic, by the way, to tell people they have to be politically correct. That's just a control tactic. They want you to feel bad for saying things like Tammy said, deport them all no matter what, because then they want to call you, oh, you're an Islamophobe, you're all these terrible racist things, which by the way is not true at all. And to want to protect our national security, to be able to want to protect our family from what is becoming a very serious radicalized ideology that literally wants to kill. I mean, it's just be blunt about it. They literally want to kill, every Muslim that doesn't agree to these ultra conservative principles. And of course, any person who is any Christian, they're very much against Christians, clearly. But something interesting, Colonel Adams, is because you mentioned Russia, is Putin is very much trying to portray Russia as what's going to be the America of the future. He feels like we're a lost cause over here, that we've already let things get too far. And he's offered, I talked about this a couple months ago, he's offering Americans to be able to come to Russia for 90 days, 90 days out, they'll help you find a place to live, they'll help you find work, whatever it is you have to do for 90 days. And they're actually giving people a cash stipend, from what I hear, if you want to come to Russia and spend those 90 days. They said, we are the new country of freedom. Come on here, and you're going to see what it's like to truly, live in a Christian nation and to truly have freedom. And I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's just a stab at the United States. Allison, what Allison says, we should have put a bounty on them. Yeah, thanks, Allison.
Oh,
She's a trip. Hey, off topic. In fact, Allison is in charge of this thing. We got December the 13th, Washington Guards got the Wreaths Across America, that big organization that puts a wreath on all the veterans' graves. And even if you're not a member of the Washington Guard, you want to join us, and you could email us at patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. We'll hook you up with Allison and come out there and help us put these wreaths out for these great national treasures.
I love to hear that. That's a really nice thing.
Sure.
I hope everyone reaches out and pitches in a hand.
I'll be there. So anyway, let me tell you how fast this thing's moving. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. Now we've been out here in Washington, Missouri, in our 4th year. Okay, so let's say 4 years. So 4 years ago, I get out here. I'm organized in the Washington Guard. I go around and meet the sheriffs. The police chief of Washington issued a memo to all his police officers to be careful, watch out for me because I'm dangerous.
What?
And the members of this Washington Guard that he's recruiting are dangerous. So watch your traffic stops because Colonel Adams is Islamophobic. The police chief
What? Are you
said that.
serious?
Sending out 2 detectives. Listen to, so what he should have done was, first of all, I never met the guy before. He should have sent out a couple of detectives, say, hey, we got this memo, you're dangerous, we understand your background, can you tell us what's going on? Did he do that? No. Now he's no longer police chief. I wonder why. But me and the new police chief, the current police chief, are on good relations. He knows me.
Right.
But listen to this. Just 4 years ago, he puts out a memo that the leader of the Washington Guard is Islamophobic, right? Well, guess what? Now they see what I was talking about. And that just happened in 4 years. That's how fast this has developed. Not to me, but to the average person.
Correct. And it's moving like wildfire. Let me backtrack for a second. That's ridiculous that the local police department would do that, because you have one of the most amazing organizations, and guess what, you're a number one supporter of law enforcement. You would never be a danger to law enforcement, so that is insane. And then secondly, Colonel Adams, I think it even took me by surprise, because if you would have asked me now, maybe 5 years ago, yeah, I saw it coming. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, definitely did not. And I can remember when people talked about that back in the day, and I thought, well, that'll never happen here in the United States. And then here we are, and we're hearing, more and more. I talked about this on Saturday, the radicalization that's taking place in the local mosque, and it's really terrifying. And what's even crazier about it is that while allegedly our FBI keeps an eye on radicalization, oh, we lost Colonel Adams again. While the FBI keeps an eye on radicalization in the mosque, they're really just not doing anything about it. All right, Colonel Adams. Oh, there you are. You are back, and glad to have you here. I'm not sure what's going on. Kind of going. It could even be on my end. I'm not sure. Our streaming software definitely it's the best one there is, but it still has its faults. So if it's
Pay
on
your
my
bill.
end, I apologize.
Pay your bill. No, hey, no, Allison is right. I hate to admit it, but we need to really stop this thing, and it won't happen. We will not do what's necessary. That's the problem, because they won't let the president do what's necessary.
They won't. You're correct.
No,
But why aren't we in these mosques? Why aren't we stopping radicalization the minute it starts? And Colonel Adams, what I talked about on Saturday is that I've said this before. I have friends who are Muslim, and they believe Muslim, the Islamic religion is of love and peace. And they're very upset when they see radicalization. But here's what I don't understand. The people I know who do attend a mosque regularly, they tell me they know the radicalization is going on. They know who's doing it. They can feel it. They fear it because they know that who gets killed more often by radical Muslims is Muslims. They kill the Muslims first that are not radicalized. That's how they reach their objective. Is if you don't want to radicalize, guess what? They have no place for you. These people are fearful, but why isn't anything happening?
Why is Islam allowed hate speech? Now, if you and I took a podium in a public and talked about what those Omars talk about as far as wiping the other side out, that's hate speech. So they're immune to it. They get to do it, but we don't dare do it.
Right. It's a tough situation. We have Muslims, the people of the Islamic faith that listen to this show, and sometimes they comment publicly. Sometimes they just send me messages in private, and it's the same situation. They say, they actually, most of them understand, they get it because they're like, and here's the difference too. We have the Shiite Muslims, and then we have the Sunni Muslims. Now, typically, by far and large, it is the Sunni Muslims that are radicalized. And so a lot of the people that I know, a lot of people listen to the show, they're on the Shiite side, the Shia side. And of course, they're persecuted constantly by the Sunnis. I'm not going to go deeper than that today. Some of you understand that differentiation and some of you don't, but they're fearful too. And if they know who is doing the radicalization, which mosques are radicalized, why isn't anyone stepping up and doing something about it? Because I'm not against Muslims. I'm not against the Islamic faith. I am against the ideology, but not all Muslims carry that ideology. But it's getting to the point where so many do, and that radicalization is just growing exponentially.
Well, think about this. All we've talked about today, except for the wreath ceremony, wreaths across America, the only thing we've talked about today is the threat of Islam. Now, 4 years ago, would we had an entire show about the fear of Islam in the threat of Islam? No. That's how fast this is moving, people. That's how fast this is moving.
Yeah, I remember if you recall, during Obama's term, we had quite a few terror attacks in this country perpetrated by ISIS, lone wolves that were associated with Al Qaeda, ISIS, both Sunni groups, by the way. And as a matter of fact, 99.5% of all Islamic terror groups are Sunni terrorists, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Now, of course, that's obviously a big threat we face. But during Donald Trump's term in 2016 and on, I don't recall us having all of those big terror attacks like we did during Obama's term. So I always thought that was kind of unusual that we were able to foil. Now they have attacks in the planning stages all the time. Many of those we're able to foil before they are carried out.
I just people are going to be 5 years from now. You'd be lucky if we go at the same rate we're going right now. You will not recognize this country. We've already got no-go zones. We know that.
Several of them.
several, and that's it was Sharia laws implemented. They got their own police department. They're going to use their own currency eventually down in the city of St. Louis. They got their own Afghani banks. They got their own chamber of commerce. And
Right.
what the hell?
That's true. That's true because
What
we
is
have that
wrong with
Afghan.
our politicians?
Yeah, we
They
have an
better be glad.
Afghan.
They better be glad I'm not in charge. Hey, on another topic, these pardons by dummy Biden.
By the auto
How
pen.
many, what was the final number of these pardons? Was it like 3,500, 3,400? He did.
I don't know.
Allison,
I
do you
do not
know? I mean, okay. Now, do people understand how this pardon process works? Do you know, Tab?
Well, I don't know how the entire process works. I do know that once a pardon is issued, that person, is given immunity. They're not, punished by whatever crime they did. I know the basics of how it works. But of course, it doesn't matter because Donald Trump invalidated all of those pardons. He signed the documents. It is signed, it is official. None of those pardons mean a darn thing anymore.
Well, there's got to be a bunch of pardon attorneys. Now, there's attorneys, that's all they do. Like in the city of St. Louis, I actually spoke to one of them. And so you basically, you're charged a fee. Nothing's for free, okay? You're charged a fee, and then it goes into the process. And then if it gets to the next level, you pay another fee. Thousands of dollars for these pardons. Now, where's this money coming from? Good question. So anyway, there's a lot of pardon attorneys right now that are on the limb for this money if the pardon's turned down because they're guaranteed a pardon. So I don't know what they're going to do. If there's over 3,000, oh my God, we're talking millions of dollars here. They pay for a pardon, unless you got a case like mine. When I was convicted during Iran-Contra, and the federal judge saw it was a wrong conviction, he basically said you can't rob a bank if the bank's never been robbed. So how can they convict me? And of course, I got a pardon for free. But the average person has to pay a lot of money to get a pardon, to get it signed off.
Correct.
Can you imagine Joe Biden sitting there signing anything? No, not at all.
No, definitely the auto pen. And from what I understand, there was a very significant amount of money. Now, this is just hearsay and rumor that there was a significant amount of money paid for each of those pardons.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, I can go back, go back 1988. Before the federal judge reversed the decision on me, I got approached by pardon attorneys back then. We'll get you a pardon, about $10,000, $2,500 up front. So I said, you got to pay for a pardon when you're innocent. And of course I didn't have to, but that was back then in 1988. What's that worth now? All right, I'm going to cover one more thing, and I'll be happy to let you go. So I know we got some stuff to talk about.
I do, okay. but after you cover your thing, if you have time, I've got something else I want to talk to you about.
Oh, okay. I got to get this off my chest. I'm getting a little pissed off. It seems like recently, Deanna, my wife, is intentionally upstaging me. Now, if you look over my shoulder here, what do you see?
I see a beautiful medal.
Donald Trump presented her with the Gold Medal Award for Public Service 25 years.
Oh, right? That's amazing.
So Gary Lucy's Studios found out that she got that. They framed it for her, and it just arrived. And that's and that is not an auto pen signature either. It's President Donald Trump. So
congratulations.
People don't understand of her charity work. Was Ronald McDonald House. She was the head of that for a number of years. Make-A-Wish, all these things under the
wonderful organization.
All these things go under the radar, and I can't take credit for it. I wouldn't pick that up. Other than that, that's about it. And also, since we talked last, that she's been shooting in competition, doing real well. Well, she's now a state champion.
I love it.
Okay. But that being said, remember this: I was 4-time state champion, so she doesn't have it yet. But anyway, she's
going to catch up to you and bypass you pretty soon.
Don't say that; it scares me. Anyway, so that's her. In the last 10 days, she gets a presidential gold medal from Donald Trump, and she's now a state shooting champion.
I I love to hear it. And I didn't realize it that Deanna was involved with the Ronald McDonald House or the Make a Wish. I've had interactions with both. Some of you guys know that I had a brother. We had a house fire many years ago, and my brother was burned very badly. He was in the burn unit for quite some time, for gosh, nearly a year. And during that time, we came into contact with a lot of people who had burn victims also in and out of the burn unit. And a lot of the families would tell me, yeah, Ronald McDonald is putting us up. They give us, vouchers for food. They give them housing, while their loved one is in the hospital. Just an absolutely fantastic organization. Make a Wish Foundation. I work, of course, in the film industry, and I have had the it's a tough word to use. I guess the honor of meeting some of the Make a Wish benefactors where they've given us somebody a wish, and a lot of times it's children, and they want to see a certain movie and meet a certain celebrity, and have this really wonderful film experience. And I've been very happy to be able to be a part of that in some people's lives, and just both really good organizations. So good work, Deanna.
A lot of the trips and events that she sent these children on, that's what they wanted, because these children didn't have much time left.
Correct.
That's a tough subject. And
Sure is.
I'll tell you how she really is. She backstoppers, okay. And what was that with the vest? That backstopper? Yeah. She donates $50,000 to backstoppers because they need a safety vest. I mean, that's what kind
fantastic.
of person she is.
Yeah.
I can't take credit for that. So,
well, we're secretly plotting to get Deanna on the show one day soon.
Yeah.
She's going to have a story to share with us.
Yeah, that could be bad for me. So, yeah, what did it say? Oh yeah, Kevin Joseph says it's time for me to step up my game. my game got stepped on a long time ago. So,
well, congratulations, Deanna. I am so happy to hear that. That's just wonderful news. And yes, I love that you're displaying it proudly in the background.
Yeah. So it's and she just, it's the kind of stuff that goes under the radar that nobody knows about, but they do now. And there's more, a lot more. So what else you got?
Colonel Adams, two things kind of rolled into one. Something that I'm not hearing talked about much, and that is that we have troops right now on the ground in Somalia fighting terrorism. I haven't heard one single word about it from anyone, but yet we do have troops on the ground in Somalia, interacting, with different types of Islamic terror groups. And secondly, a lot of people may or may not have heard this, that Donald Trump made a really, truly a direct threat to Nicolas Maduro over in Venezuela. Now, over the weekend, they shut down all flights, they shut down the airspace over Venezuela. Now, Maduro did that, of course, because he knows an attack is incoming. Now, Donald Trump has warned Nicolas Maduro that this is your last and final warning. You have one last opportunity to save your life and the lives of your family. Get out now. We are in a very clear mission to oust Nicolas Maduro. This is a long time coming. It's just finally come down to the line has been drawn, and we've given him that final warning. Now, is he going to heed the warning? I don't know.
I guarantee Maduro is keeping his wife and children close by, because he knows if he was on a solo trip or a mission someplace or a speaking engagement, that he'd taken him out a long time ago. So he's keeping a lot of people around for collateral damage. So, for his own protection. But we know where he lives. We know where he goes. So, yeah, it's going to happen.
It is definitely going. Yeah. And the threat is equally against his family. Trump said, you and your family, if you want to protect yourself and your family, get out now. Take your family and leave.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the Trump administration have been promoting that propaganda a lot more than they have been. But it's a matter of time. Maduro's going to get it. But if I was Donald Trump, President Trump, I would send troops in after those Nigerians that's going after the Christians. It would be a great way to strike back with special ops. And because of they don't have the logistical support that some of these other countries do. Like well, look at Syria. We just did a joint operation with them over the weekend on a ISIS facilities. See, look how fast that's turned around Now we're fighting with Syria against ISIS. Of course,
It's,
ISIS is the problem with Syria, but see how fast sides change.
they do, and I'm not even going to get started on Syria because I'll just become very angry and carry on forever because the situation upsets me so much, and it's the same as what's going on over in Somalia. Democrats are so upset. The few Democrats that know that we have troops in Somalia right now, and people have told me, oh, Donald Trump said we would never be in a war. Well, it's not a war in Somalia. It is that we're trying to save the lives of Christians, save the lives of non-radicalized Muslims that are being executed daily. But what people also don't understand what's going on with these terror groups in Somalia is that the terror groups, not only are they growing and radicalizing very quickly in Somalia and have been for a very long time, but they are also kidnapping Somalians and selling them into slavery. If you go over to Libya, and I'm sure, Colonel Adams, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. If you go over to Libya, there are still slave blocks. They still have these stages set up where they have these Somali migrants that they have kidnapped and brought into Libya, and they're selling them into slavery. It is very much alive and well, but no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to talk about that. Everyone wants to talk about how Somalia is such a great country. The people of Somalia are such a great country. And then here in the United States, it has trickled over here to such a degree that now we have this situation in Minnesota where, what was it, like massive fraud was uncovered,
Yeah.
and the radicalization that's going on in Minnesota, it's just unbelievable. And,
Yeah,
and
but
it's about time we stepped up and did something about it.
there's a lot we got to step up and do about it. It's funny because when my friend who was a contractor was working in Nigeria training their police department, uh, the secretary of finance over there lost $2 billion from the national funds. 2 million. And when they asked her, like, I mean, 2 billion. So they said, where did the 2 billion go? They have no answer. Turn the page. Next. The lady loses $2 billion. Now, where do you think that 2 billion went? It didn't go to the
Right.
people, but that's common over there. I
It,
mean,
it, it
they need
really
to.
is unbelievable.
I always said for years that we need to turn Iran into a parking lot, and I finally got my wish. But there's several countries that should just be wiped off the face of the earth for the good of humanity and mankind. People think, well, that's cruel. There's women and children. Can't help that. But this,
Well, but we're working on it now. Again, I had a show on Saturday, so I haven't talked about this, any other day. But Donald Trump obviously issued that order where he's going to go back and look at the green cards for people that come from 19 different countries, and I read that list on Saturday, and then he's also permanently, according to him, permanently stopped any type of immigration coming in for third world countries. So I mean, he's upset, he's ready to make changes. Now of course there's going to be some liberal judge that comes through that says that's unconstitutional, you can't do that. But they're going to do something. But I don't know if you heard about this, Colonel Adams. What happened in Minnesota? There are 75 names here. I'm not about to read them all. And all but two are people that are of the Islamic faith. And there's 75 Minnesotans charged so far. And this is a $1 billion Somalian fraud scheme that took place under Governor Tim Walz. $1 billion in fraud, all committed by Somalians.
that's just what they found out.
Right.
There's a
This
lot
is
more.
just the tip of the iceberg for the Somalis.
Like the old Nigerian prince that's got money in the bank and wants some help. Yeah.
Now, did Tim Walz, did he get a payout?
Did
Did
who
he get a
what?
kickback? Did Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, who definitely supports the Somalians and that are in Minnesota, did he get a kickback? Did he not know? It's a $1 billion being stolen from the government. How did he not know?
Well, I thought that was a political donation. So they've got all kinds of ways to cover it. Tampon Tim, he's great. I mean, he should be on the Comedy Channel.
Yes, he should. Yes, he
But
should.
anyway, I really think that we should launch troops in Nigeria and go after these people that are killing the Christians. it wouldn't be that difficult, and I hate to say that because there's always going to be casualties in war. This would be a necessary war because this would be a strike back at Islam, and that
Well,
would be my motivation.
it would, but here's the thing, Colonel Adams, and again, I'm preaching to the choir. I know you and everyone else knows this, and I'm sorry if my comment upsets anyone. You know, yes, we would go to Nigeria if we end up with troops in Nigeria, if we end up with troops in Somalia, and anywhere we go where we send troops, we're not there to save the lives of Christians. We're not there in Somalia to fight terrorists. We are there under the disguise of fighting for Christians. We're there under the disguise, even under the Trump administration. We are there for their natural resources. We want their oil. We want we want their natural minerals. We want some rare earth minerals. That, in my opinion, hasn't changed. And the reason why I feel like I can say that is because look what's happening, like you brought up in Syria. Oh, we hate Al Qaeda, we hate ISIS, we hate terrorists. We're going to go over and kill all the terrorists. No, we are inviting the terrorists to the White House. The same people, the same guy we had a $10 million bounty on, is now the president of Syria, invited to the White House, sitting next to Donald Trump, having dinner with Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump, and it's the best thing that could have happened to this country. But this administration is no different than the rest of them. They're going to say we're doing this for the right reasons, and it's not. When I see Donald Trump sitting next to Al Jawani, who has a new name, by the way, and they renamed, of course, Al Qaeda to what is it, HTC or HRS? I can't even remember what the name is because I don't care. It's so upsetting to me. Do you know right now that you can? I just watched a video on this over the weekend. You can see from space. You can see the blood from the killing of the Christians and other innocent people in Nigeria. It just makes me sick. You can see it from space. I watched the videos of it, but yet, what are we going to do? If they have some minerals to give us, maybe we'll go over there.
Well, like I say, you're saying having terrorists in the White House. Well, an old private detective who was the number one private detective in St. Louis until I came on board and took over the industry. He said in a interview in I think it was the Post-Dispatch or Riverfront Time, he says, sometimes a real sign of a professional is shaking hands with somebody who you wouldn't normally shake hands with. That's what it's about.
I get it. We have to have diplomacy, and I said that on a show a couple weeks ago. That as difficult as it is for me, I understand we have to have diplomacy. We have to have, but why? I want Donald Trump to say, "Hey, Al Jawani, call him by his real name. You are a terrorist. You burned our military members alive in cages. You burned journalists alive in cages. You killed." Somebody I know, a good friend of mine, lost his best friend over in Syria. To who? To terrorists. But yet now these are troops, American troops. They're forced to fight alongside the terrorists, the same people who killed their brothers and sisters. Now they have to be best buddies with and train and arm and give them money. It's just a screwed up society, a screwed up world. I don't care who's president. There are some things we just never get away from.
Yeah, politics makes strange bedfellows, that's for sure. Hey, there's something I wasn't going to mention this until I get a better word. I saw the list of countries that's being banned for visas to come to the United States.
19 of them.
And Burma is on that.
I saw that.
All right, Burma, which is Burma. It's not Myanmar. I don't care what the junta says. So, and I was a colonel with the resistance in the Democratic Alliance Burma Army, and I was over there for 2 years training student revolutionaries and attacking the dictatorship. So then I did some more research on rare earths in Southeast Asia. And I primarily was financed by a state called the Kachin, which is on the southern Chinese border. Burma's it's like the United States. They have several states, and the Kachin is the most wealthiest because of rare earths and their jade production. So it got me thinking. The only person on this planet that knows both sides of that civil war over there is me. So I reached out to some people and they were working on it. And I said, I found out we don't have an ambassador to Burma. I said, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring. And so they go, really? I said, well, think about it. I'm the only person that knows both sides. And guess where the biggest deposits of rare earth minerals are? In Burma, in the Kachin state. I've got a letter on my wall with the chairman of the Kachin state giving me full authority to train his troops and everything. So when I would walk into the Kachin state, I'd be like, they'd have a parade for me because of the work that I did. So anyway, my hat's in the ring to be an ambassador. Now, whether I would take it or not, I just thought it was kind of cute. And of course, Deanna was sitting there listening to me. So you have to understand what an ambassador has to do. And these people don't like each other over there. But I'm a person that's qualified to be the ambassador to Burma. So we'll see what happens.
Well, that would be awfully nice. We could have you join the show from Burma. But Colonel Adams,
I have to take Allison with me because she's my girl Friday.
Which I love to hear. Do you know, this is completely aside from that topic, but something I hadn't even thought to talk about yet on the show is that here in the Midwest, they are currently right now, there's a big swath of area searching for rare earth minerals. I guess you've probably seen that.
Yeah.
They're going to have these different reconnaissance flights going over the Midwest, and they're looking for rare earth minerals. And, what I'm curious about is when they find them, and they probably will find them, what are they going to do? Are they going to make, people surrender their land? Are they going to, I don't understand what's going to happen. Are we going to become a resourceful country? Because we have rare earth minerals here. Of course,
Missouri,
they just haven't been uncovered.
We have a mining operation going up in northwest Missouri, some strange little town. I don't know, I forget the name of it. Never heard of it, but we're mining rare earth right now in Missouri.
And it's gonna become more frequent because once they've already said when they identify the areas of rare earth minerals, or other, I don't know what else they're looking for. They're looking for other minerals too, and other resources. But when they identify them, I'm a little concerned what might happen to those landowners.
Oh boy, yeah.
Now maybe you become very wealthy and you're happy to give up your land. Hillary Clinton is not our Secretary of State anymore, so the Bureau of Land Management hopefully is not going to come in and kick you off your property like they did in her terms. But I think that'll be handled in a better way under Donald Trump administration.
I don't know. We declare because national security, it gives them a lot of leeway. But yeah, you're right. But you wrote a thing about why are we really there? What's our when I was a drop with the CIA, we had a philosophy like, who am I today and why am I here and what am I supposed to be doing? All right, which was a cover.
It's all theater.
So us going to Nigeria could be the fact that rare earth, and if we occupy that area and cordon it off, then that gives us access to that. So yeah, so that's one of my pitches to the people that's presenting my bid to be ambassador to Burma. The one state that has the most rare earth is the state that's so loyal to me in Burma. And I understand those people. And I understand the junta also. So we'll see what happens.
Yes. We'll have to see how that all plays out.
You didn't even hear about rare earth 10 years ago, did you?
No.
We understand why we're talking about it now, right?
We need to be talking about it now because you know what we need, our resources in the United States are completely untapped. And the only way to self-sufficiency is to find it within our own boundaries. Now, there might be more to it than that, but that's kind of how I see things is that
it's the technology. We're trying to stay ahead of the game.
Oh, well, of course. Yeah. We have to have rare earth minerals.
I've talked to Amron detectives on Amron, and they tell me that our grid is topped off.
Correct.
We can't take any more because of technology. People don't understand it. What guy with Tesla? What's his name? Elon Musk building that new plant just for power.
Yeah.
Power the computers.
Yeah.
This rare earth thing is about the future of technology and keeping up with it.
Well, it has to be because right now we're in this military stranglehold, by China and some of these other countries. who we count on to supply us with these rare earth minerals, which we need to build our military, aircraft and some other, missiles and different things. We need these rare earth minerals. And if we have to continue to rely on China and other countries, we're going to be well behind the game. No
Yeah,
question.
you know, somebody said the other day, rare earth is the new oil. Well, oil is always
Yeah.
going to become an issue. We've got
Yeah.
that problem solved. Rare earth someday could be just as important as oil.
I couldn't agree. Remember a time when people thought, and there might be still people who do think, that oil was old dinosaurs whose bodies broke down and created oil reserves.
Yeah,
And why they ever taught people that, I will never know. Just more of the government lies. We have an endless supply of oil, an endless supply. We're not ever going to run out of oil.
we have more oil than any place in the world,
Correct.
any place.
Correct.
And people think, oh, Venezuelan oil, Venezuelan oil. That's why we're there. Venezuelan has some of the dirtiest oil on the planet. To use Venezuelan oil, it has to go through a series of processes to even get to a point where they can process petroleum. So it's not
Yeah.
that. It's not
No,
that.
yeah, with Venezuela, I don't see Venezuela. Now, I'm not aware, I've not really looked into what resources Venezuela has. I feel like what's happening in Venezuela is truly the Trump administration's problem solving against the drug epidemic we have in this country, against the gangs that are being sent over here. And I think more than anything, Donald Trump is very angry that he, like us, saw that Nicolas Maduro said that, hey, I sent over the Tren de Aragua gang members. I opened up my prisons and sent all of our criminals to the United States because Joe Biden asked me to. I did it because he asked me to.
Yep, Castro all over again. Yeah, Castro all over again. And what a great idea! Get rid of the bums, right? Instead of the United States, everybody's welcome. I never
Right.
forget. I remember those "Thanks Joe Biden" T-shirts. The illegals were crossing the border with the cartels handing out red, white, and blue Thanks Joe Biden. What a clown!
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable.
Why don't you go ahead and close out? You know
All
what I
right.
mean? And I'm going to go walk the dog.
All right. Well, Colonel Adams, once again with the Washington Guard, thank you so much for joining us. Reach out to Colonel Joe Adams at WashingtonGuard.com. You can go onto their website there, and we will look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. And remember, when you join the Guard, you're no longer alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Joe Adams, for joining us today. Always happy to have Colonel Joe Adams joining us. And I don't have Kevin, Venezuela voter fraud. Yeah, they become a communist society, a socialist society, and as soon as they did, guess what? The entire country fell. I don't have to tell you guys. I know, again, I'm preaching to the choir. Where we had some of the wealthiest citizens in Venezuela burning their cash, people who had accumulated a lot of cash, burning their cash to keep warm, eating food out of dumpsters. I'll never forget that I saw a family talking and said, oh, yeah, we were very wealthy. And then socialism took over, and now we don't have food. We're starving to death. We're eating scraps out of trash cans, out of dumpsters, anywhere we can get it, because that's what happens under socialism. And speaking of that, I don't have a whole lot more to talk about, but I want to show this video of Mom Donnie in New York, because everyone thinks, oh, socialism is free. We're going to get free stuff. Okay, well, if you're going to get free stuff, if it's all about everything being free, why is Mom Donnie still asking for money? He has accumulated $2 million, $2 million. And that's not enough. He still wants more. So I'm going to show you a quick clip of his video here.
Friends, it's chilly out there. It's chilly in here. But one thing I'm warming up to is the idea of a fully funded transition. So go to transition2025.com, pitch in whatever you can. Let's win a city we can all afford.
Oh, $2 million, and he wants more money from the people of New York. I mean, if you lived in New York, I mean, you would have to be tired of that. I would be saying, Mom Donnie, you promised us free stuff, and now you're telling us send us what we can. Send us what we, send you what we can. It's just ridiculous. I hate to say it. I don't want anything bad to happen to the city of New York or the state of New York. But at the same time, this is somebody up above. I think his name was Sam. Said you get what you vote for. You get what you vote for. And yes, Kevin, you're right. Nothing is ever free. Good morning, Joe. And I'll tell you, it's aggravating. And I hate to say it, I'm glad I don't live in New York City, but I love to see how things play out. I really do. We're at the very beginning. We've got a whole show ahead of us as far as what's going to happen in New York City. Just wait, 6 months from now, a year from now, and we're going to start seeing things. Now, things might look better at first. They're going to put some propaganda out there that things are so great, and then it's all going to fall apart. That's how it's going to work. And speaking of things looking great, have you guys noticed gas prices coming down? Somebody in Oklahoma reported paying $1.65 a gallon for gas. I saw all kinds of photos over the weekend. People in different areas saying, "Look at the price of gas." Right at $2, slightly above $2. Some people below $2. So things are looking good. They're looking good. It just takes time. Where are we? We're in. Oh, speaking of December 1st, happy December 1st. We're in December. Donald Trump just stepped into office. What, January 20th? We've got a lot done in a short amount of time. We've got a lot more to go. Just think, we have 3 more years to go. What's going to happen in those 3 years? It's hard for me to even wrap my head around it, that the next 3 years we're going to be able to see how all this plays out. Are we going to be able to lower food prices and keep the gas prices low? Are we able to going to give some relief to the families who need it? And somebody on I think it was Facebook, made a really good point the other day to a Democrat that came on and said, "Oh, Donald Trump said he was going to lower prices and Americans are struggling." And I can't recall who it was, but this person made a very good point. And they said, no, Americans were struggling in the Biden administration. They were struggling during the Biden administration, and they're still struggling. We can't just dissipate all of the prices and everything in the first couple of months. It takes time. So all we can do is wait and see how it plays out. And that's what we're going to do. Pam said Wall Street will become bankruptcy street. Pam, that Donald Trump is going to do his best to support Wall Street. I know that. He's going to do his best to keep the market up. I am 100% positive of that. But I do still continue to think that stocks, the stock market, the stock trade, that it is meant for the wealthy. It's not for the average person. And I know people say, well, that's not true. Okay, so let's say you put in $5,000. Where's that $5,000 going to go? Probably not very far. You put in 500,000. Guess what? You're going to be doing really good on that amount of money. The more you put in, the more you're going to make. And if you're just putting in little bits here and there, I really don't think that the stock market is for small investors. I truly do not. I think it is meant for the bigger investors who have $100,000 or a lot more than that to put into the stock market. And I think that there's a lot of other ways people can make money on a lesser scale, buying real estate. Trust me, you can buy some very inexpensive homes, very inexpensive land, and turn that around into some rental property. So there's a lot of other ways people can invest. I'm not sure what's going to happen on Wall Street, because I know while Donald Trump is president, he's going to do his best to keep that floated. And Kevin says we can't fix 4 years of fraud overnight. You got that right. Now, let's see. Pam says financial markets will move out of New York. They are heading. You know what, Pam? I'm glad you brought that up. And I think I misunderstood your first comment. And Pam, they're heading towards Texas. What if they came to St. Louis? There's a lot of talk about some of these big investment firms, big financial markets coming to the St. Louis area. I find that personally hard to believe, but it's one of the rumors I've heard. And Texas is definitely a good start. But you're right. We're going to see companies, we're going to see wealthy people moving out of New York. There's no question about it. Now, Kathy Hochul, of course, the governor of New York, she says Mom Donnie does not matter to her. She is not going to allow him to raise taxes specifically against the wealthy. We'll see again. All we can do is wait and see. Now, here's something I want to play for you guys very quickly, because I think this is pretty funny. It's Governor Tim Walz. We just talked about him earlier, Governor Tim Walz, and talking about Kamala Harris potentially running in 2028. This guy, he cannot even hide the way he really thinks. That he does. I am sure Tim Walz probably really thinks that had it been anybody but Kamala Harris, he would be sitting in the White House right now as the vice president. Maybe even he thinks that he could run for president himself. Who knows what's in his warped mind? But I think it's really funny because he's having a hard time getting through this talk about Kamala Harris and promoting her for 2028. You can tell that he's not saying what he'd really like to say. I'm going to play that clip for you. But what my question is this the best they have? Is Kamala Harris the best they have? You can just watch this for yourself.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris has left the door open to potentially run for office again. Do you still think she's the strongest person to run for president in 2028?
Well, I'm glad she's out there, and I'm glad a whole lot of other people are out there, because I think Donald Trump sucks up so much oxygen. We need to have the Democratic Party out on the field, the broad, inclusive Democratic Party, talking about making life more affordable, talking about protecting freedoms, and I think Kamala Harris does a wonderful job with that. If she chooses to run, that betters all of us. We will have the process. We'll go through. I'm sure there'll be a lot of folks throw their hat into the ring, but that's good, and we need to make sure that we're providing the alternative that America's asking for. If they're going to elect us, we need to make sure healthcare costs come down. We need to make sure prices come down. We need to make sure that we're addressing the things that they care about, whether it's clean water or protecting environment. Those are things they want to see us get done. And I think she had a message last year that I'm proud of. I think, did it break through enough? Obviously not, but it's still a message that works, making sure that America is affordable for all, people feel included, and we tackle the toughest problem.
At no point does he answer the question asked of him, is she the best person to run in 2028? Oh, I'm glad she's out there. I'm glad a lot of other people are out there too. He knows. She was a terrible choice to begin with. Is that the best Democrats have to push forward for 2028? When you think about it, is that the best they have? Clearly it is, or they wouldn't have ran her in 2024. I know Obama kind of probably sat back and thought, seriously, is this the best we have? This woman is never going to win. Never going to win. I mean, they practically handed it to us, right? With Kamala Harris at the forefront. Now, I do know people who really like her. I do. But not very many of them. And when I was out traveling around the country back during that time period right before the election, I could count on two hands the number of Harris signs I saw. It was not many at all. Hundreds, thousands of Trump signs, maybe a dozen, maybe a dozen Harris signs. I wouldn't even say I saw that many. It was just not a good team, not a good effort they put out. And I know a lot of people are talking about Gavin Newsom, that he's going to run in 2028. I don't think he's going to. I really don't think he's going to. I think that he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet. Now, this is just my personal opinion. And I think if he ran, he knew he would never survive the backlash. So I don't know that I expect him to run. AOC, another situation. She's probably going to throw her name in the ring. I don't expect that to go far, but there's a lot of people who disagree with me on that. They think that she will. So we'll see how that works out. Kevin says they don't get elected, they get cheated in. You got that right. Good morning, Adrian. And Kevin said Hochul will do what she's told. She is owned by the elites. Isn't that the truth? And the large fund managers control the market. Also very, very true. I just saw some breaking news come through, and it says, let's see here. I just saw that there's a global cyber attack taking place. Several United States government agencies have been hit by a global cyber attack. I'm not sure what all that affects or will affect, and no big surprise there. We've had several cyber attacks, over the years, but one of these days they're going to hit us good. One of these days they're going to hit us good. And just think about that. If they ever had a cyber attack against our financial institutions, and I think they have the ability to do that. I think the only reason why they haven't done it is because they know that if the minute they make that step, and cross that line, that they're going to be completely annihilated by the United States government. So that's the only reason why that hasn't happened. But just think when things get that bad and they do have this big, massive cyber attack against our financial institution, your money is nothing more than a blip on a screen. That's it. It's just a blip on a screen. If there was a very serious cyber attack or a hack into the banking financial industry in the United States, it would be absolute chaos, wouldn't it be? Absolute chaos. Or into the network that runs the various gas pumps. Absolute chaos. There's so many different crazy things that could happen. And Kevin, Trump stopped the cheating in 2024. Kevin, so many people don't understand what happened in 2024. I still run into Democrats who tell me, well, the Trump administration, they cheated. That's how he won 2024. They definitely did not cheat. But what they did do, and it was completely legal, of course, is they made sure that the Democrats didn't cheat. And how they did that is they got Donald Trump elected in the early vote. And I know that because I was running around door to door, for over a month, about 6 weeks out in Georgia, knocking on people's doors saying, hey, go out and vote, today. I think it was October 9th, their voting opened. And I think I got out there, what was it, sometime in September. And our goal was telling people, hey, get out and vote. The minute your poll location opens, we're going to win this in the early vote. Get out and vote as soon as you can possibly go. And people would tell me, oh, well, we just vote when everybody else does. I'm like, don't do that. If you want Donald Trump to win, don't wait. We're on a mission here. We're going to make sure Donald Trump wins in the early vote. Because if he wins in the early vote and we have all the votes we need for Donald Trump for a win, because we know how many votes we need up front for a win, if we get all those votes in prior to the general election day, then guess what happens? They can't cheat. It'll be too late. We've already got all the votes. They can't come back and cheat on election day. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. People stood up across the United States, not just in Georgia, and they got out the early vote. Donald Trump won this election in the early vote. That didn't give Democrats an opportunity to cheat. That's what happened. And it will someday be a historical moment. Not enough people talk about it. Not enough people understand how Donald Trump won in the early vote. And you know what? That was because of Elon Musk. And in Elon Musk and people like Charlie Kirk, people don't understand why Charlie Kirk was such an enemy of the Democrat Party. Not necessarily Democrat people, but of the Democrat Party. It is because people in Elon Musk, why did they chase him out of the White House? Same reason, because Elon Musk and Charlie Kirk were central in Donald Trump winning in the early vote. Because, Charlie Kirk, the TPUSA, Turning Point USA, they were doing the same thing as America PAC was. They were spending millions of dollars to get people out, just like I was doing, going door to door, explaining to people that you need to go out right now and cast your vote in the early vote so we can win this thing before they have the chance to cheat. It maybe not phrased exactly in that way, but get out and cast it. And that's why they hated Charlie Kirk. It wasn't nothing to do with about him being Christian, nothing along those lines. It's because he ran a super PAC. Turning Point USA is a super PAC funded with millions upon millions of dollars. And he was very instrumental in getting Donald Trump elected. And I think that a lot of these people saw, and I'm talking about people in the shadow government, people at the very top of things, the people in the cabal, whatever you might want to call them, they saw that once Donald Trump won this election in the early vote, they knew that groups like America PAC, groups like Turning Point USA, they were going to go back out and were in the process of doing that when Charlie Kirk, unfortunately, was killed, is they were going around to local elections. And they thought, you know what, we're going to start at the bottom. And we're going to start working on these local elections, city elections, state elections, etc. And we're going to get the right people in. And that is the last thing the cabal wants to hear, is that we have somebody working for us on these bottom levels, because that was their plan, right? Their strategy. We were kind of fighting them at their own game. And I will always believe that is why Charlie Kirk became a target. It had nothing to do with him being Christian. It had nothing to do, with him being a speaker or any of these things he said. It was because he was the owner of the CEO of his own super PAC, and he was actually making a huge difference in elections in this country. And without Turning Point, I don't know that we would have won the election in the early vote. Without America PAC, ran by Elon Musk, I don't know if we would have won in the early vote. And what's interesting, I wasn't even planning on talking about this really, but I had a video queued up and I thought, if it comes up, I'll talk about it. And this is Elon Musk, because we haven't heard a lot about Elon Musk. Haven't heard a lot about America PAC, quite honestly, lately. Here's what Elon Musk has to say about politics.
I've generally found that when I get involved in politics, it ends up badly. So then I'm like, probably shouldn't do that. I should do less of that, is my conclusion.
Do you think that's true for all businessmen?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
that's a longer interview, but what happened with Elon Musk, I'm not telling you anything you probably don't know. Yes, of course he's a businessman, yes, but he also cares about this country. He cares about the future of this country. And you could say, well, he's thinking about that from a business standpoint, or he's thinking about that because he loves capitalism. Well, good for him. I love capitalism too, and you probably also do. It doesn't matter what his reasoning is. The fact is he is first buddy no more. Why? Because he was an enemy of the deep state. That's why. He was an enemy of the deep state. And they twisted and turned things in so many different directions that not only did it tear apart his friendship with Donald Trump, but it really tore apart the fabric of our country and what our mission was. Because Elon Musk, again, absolutely instrumental in getting out the early vote for Donald Trump. He was so involved in America PAC. He was so incredibly involved. He had a representative. I don't want to share too much, but he had a representative that would call into the meetings. It was his right hand man. Elon Musk knew everything that was going on. They had a text line set up. So any of us who were out in the field, we could send texts about things we were seeing. We could take photos of patriotic things. He wanted to see everything we saw. So we would take photos and send them into this text line, and Elon Musk himself would go through those files and review them. He would give people bonuses for doing different things. He was giving out millions of dollars, as you know, $1 million to different people who come to these rallies in some type of drawing. And it just absolutely infuriated Democrats because we were winning at the same game, that they had played for so long. And if it weren't for Elon Musk, and I'm not saying Trump couldn't win on his own standing. I'm not saying that. Had it been just left up to the general election and everybody went out on, voting day and voted, maybe Donald Trump would have still won. I would like to think that he did. But I also think that we were up against a lot of shams, a lot of cheating that could have potentially happened. We saw what happened, in 2020. So I don't think anybody could say that we weren't up against a lot of fraud, a lot of scam, a lot of cheating. But we got it in the early vote because of Elon Musk, because of Charlie Kirk. If it weren't for those two people, I don't know we would be sitting here talking about all of this today. So very, very important. Kevin says grassroots catches fast. You got that right. Pam says Charlie Kirk was a huge influence. They both, Charlie Kirk, Elon Musk, both, were just great supporters of the American people. So we can't ever forget that. We can't ever forget that for Charlie Kirk and memorial of him. And we certainly can't forget it with Elon Musk. I don't know where Elon Musk's future stands in the political arena. I don't think he's given up caring, what happens, but I think he's probably just kind of inundated and on this crazy roller coaster of politics where he did what he thought was the right thing and he just got blasted. He lost. Not only did he spend millions of dollars of his own money, but he also, when you think about it, he also lost money. What did he lose? Like 40 something, was it 40 something billion dollars? Just people who sold their stock and wouldn't buy Teslas. And remember all that? We haven't thought about that probably in a long time. All the people going out and setting Teslas on fire, vandalizing Teslas, which was really the funniest thing ever because I, to this day, only know one conservative that has ever bought a Tesla. That's it, just one. And he apologized for it. He's like, I'm so sorry. He didn't even want anybody to know he bought a Tesla. And it's so funny because that is such a liberal car. Anything EV is such a liberal green agenda. The conservatives weren't out buying Teslas. But yet we saw how that backfired on them. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me today. I've got to run. I will be here tomorrow. Wednesday morning is kind of questionable. I think I'm going to be here. I'm technically supposed to work on Wednesday and Thursday morning. I'll see how that plays out if I have somebody replace me or if I'll be here. I've got some doctor appointments coming up. I don't think I've talked to anybody really about it. For anyone, following along in my health journey, which is ever changing by the day. But, I had my appointment on Wednesday and then I didn't have a show on Thursday, didn't have a show on Friday. Thursday being Thanksgiving, Friday, I was having some technical issues. I had a show on Saturday. I don't know if I talked about it or not, but I'm kind of back to square one in that there's a little more urgency with whatever's going on. I'm kind of starting to feel the effects. So I don't really know what's going to happen going forward and with the show and how well I'm going to be able to do a show or if I'm going to be able to do one every day. I don't know. Like right now, all my lymph nodes on this side are swollen up and it's certainly not fun. No question about it. But we'll see what's going to happen. I have my doctor sent in an urgent request for an infectious disease specialist to see me. We're kind of narrowing down things. I had a lot of other blood work done, a lot of other tests done, and they're kind of explaining to me that it's either back to, being some type of malignancy, or, which I thought they had ruled out, but I had that wrong. They didn't rule it out. They just think that it's most likely not that. But there is definitely something going on. Maybe histoplasmosis is still kind of on the table. So I don't know what's happening. I do not know what's happening, but depending on where we go from here, we're kind of taking out a lot of things out of the equation, and the things that are left on the table, none of them are good. So we'll see what happens. Histoplasmosis, if that's what it is, very serious situation. And I would almost rather it be malignancy versus histoplasmosis. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm just trying to be upfront about things and where the show is going to go and how much longer I'll be able to do a show, or how that's going to work, if I have to take a hiatus or just go down in days. We'll see how it plays out. But either way, thank you so much for joining me today. Always happy to see everybody. Always happy to see your comments. And if you were here on Saturday, thank you for joining me on Saturday. As you saw, I love talking about the spiritual world, for a better lack of terms, the spiritual world. I love talking about premonitions and dreams, and I love talking about the possibility that we have extraterrestrials, or are they angels or demons. I could talk about that every single day. I won't do that to all of you because you're here for other reasons, but Saturday was a lot of fun. So thank you for anyone who joined me on Saturday. And Pam says, remain positive and know that we are all praying for you. I appreciate that, Pam, because I definitely feel like I'm at that point now where I need those prayers, or something very serious going on, and whatever it is spreading. So I got to get to the bottom of it, figure out what it is, because once something's in your lymph nodes, then you got to worry, of course, a little bit. And we'll see where things go. But I certainly do appreciate the prayers. But I do thank you all again for joining me today. I've got to run. I've got to work. And then I've got to have a big movie screening tonight of Avatar, and a big night ahead. But I do hope you guys have a really good day. And I will look forward to seeing you all tomorrow.